Nelson Mandela Long Walk to Freedom. So I hope you have done some reading with the chapter. So let us move ahead with the discussion. 10th May dawned bright and clear. For the past few days, I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respects before the inauguration. The inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. So this is just the climax, okay? But the whole story is still yet to be discussed. So this is only the flashback, okay, that the moment of happiness of celebration is taken place, okay. But how this moment came, in what way this moment had been achieved, yet to be understood, okay. So remember, in this passage, it says that on 10th May, the day was bright and clear. In the days leading up to it, many important guests and world leaders arrived to show their respect. This day marked the inauguration, a historic event with the largest gathering of international leaders ever in South Africa. As usual, I remind the meaning of the word and phrases you should learn, okay, which is given here, so that it will add more understanding to your reading and the context. Second passage. The ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheatre formed by the Union buildings in Pretoria. For decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy. So it is quite clear here, black versus white, Britishers. Okay. And now it was the site of a rainbow, that means colorful gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. So in this passage, the inauguration ceremony was held in a beautiful sandstone amphitheater at the Union Building in Pretoria. This place, once a symbol of white dominance, now hosted people of all colors and nations to celebrate South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. On the lovely day, on the lovely day, On that lovely autumn day, I was accompanied by my daughter. Okay, daughter name you should remember, Zinani. On the podium, Mr. D. Clerk was the first sworn in as second deputy. Then Thabo Mbeki was as first deputy. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and to devote myself to the well-being of the Republic and its people. To the assembled guests, that means he had given the speech from that stage of amphitheater. This is the statement that is decoded. Today, all of us do, by our presence here, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long. Most be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. We who were outlaws not so long ago have today been given the rare privilege to be host to the nations of the world on our own soil. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take possessions with the people of our country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. We who were outlaws not so long ago have today been given the rare privilege to be host to the nations of the world on our own soil. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take possessions with the people of our country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. We pledged ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. So, in his speech, Mandela welcomed everyone and said their presence brought hope to South Africa's new freedom. He reflected on the long struggle against oppression, emphasizing that a society worthy of global pride must now be built. He expressed gratitude to the international guests, calling their support a shared victory for justice, peace, and human dignity. Mandela declared that South Africa had achieved political freedom and vowed to end poverty, suffering, and all forms of discrimination. He promised that no one would ever oppress another in the country again. So Mandela ended with hope, saying that freedom would last forever and blessed Africa. A few moments later, we all lifted our eyes in awe as a spectacular array of South African jets, helicopters, and troop carriers roared in perfect formation over the Union buildings. That means amphitheater, sandstone building, remember, okay? It was not only a display of pinpoint precision and military force, but a demonstration of the military's loyalty to democracy, to a new government that had been freely and fairly elected only moments before. The highest generals of the South African Defence Force and Police, their chests bedecked with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and pledged their royalty. I was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before they would not have saluted but arrested me. Finally, a chevron of Impala jets left a smoke trail of the black, red, green, blue, and gold of the new South African flag. So, in this passage, it says, soon after, everyone watched in a wee excitement as South African jets, helicopters, and troops carriers flew perfectly over the Union buildings. This display showed both military precision and the military's commitment to the new democratic government. Just before, top generals and police officers decorated with gold medals saluted Mandela, though not long ago, they would have arrested him. Why arrested him? Because long walk for freedom means many time he was jailed. for raising his voice against the tyranny. Okay, that is why it is here he is mentioning. Okay, what he is mentioning that uh, it is here only. Yes, saluted me and pledged their royalty. Okay, you just see here it is mentioned. Okay, before they would salute and arrested me here this one. Okay, they would have saluted but arrested me. Okay, long time this respect should be given to the African people, but it was not late that they got the independence, the freedom from the British tyranny. So she he so he mentioned this in his speech. Okay, though not long ago they would have arrested me. The event e- the event ended with jets leaving smoke trails in the colors of new South African flag: black, red, green, blue, and gold. So this color of the flag, new color, you should remember. It asked in the exam. Okay, how many colors? What were their sequence? So these things you should remember. Okay, the smoke that the jet left in the air. Okay, in what sequence? Okay, black, red, green, blue, and gold as the new South African flag. Moving ahead, the day was symbolized for me by the playing of our two national anthems and the vision of white singing Nokosi, Nokosi, Nokosi Sikelel Africa and black singing Dice Team, the old anthem of the Republic. So you should remember the spelling too. Although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem, they once dispaced they would soon know the words by heart. Okay, so the two national anthem was sung. One was from white group and another was from the black group. So Mandela, okay, for Mandela, the day was symbolized by the playing of two national anthems. Black South Africans sang the old white anthem Die Stem while white South Africans sang Nakosi Sikelel Africa, the anthem of the black community. Even though neither group knew the lyrics well, Mandela believed they would soon learn them, reflecting unity and reconciliation. On the day of the inauguration of history, in the first decade of the 20th century, a few years after the Anglo-Boer War. This is very important from the historical point of view of the South African Anglo-Boer War. So, what is this Anglo-Boer War? Let us understand. Okay, before my own birth, about Nelson Mandela says here. Okay, before Nelson was given birth to the African family. Okay, what is this Anglo-Boer War? So with this we have to continue. Okay, so let us understand the Anglo-Boer War, also known as the Second Boer War, that lasted between 1899 to 1902, was a conflict between the British Empire and two Boer republics in South Africa, that is the South African Republic, okay, Transvaal, and the Orange Free State. So these two tribes of Africa were also conflicting each other, okay, against the Britishers, okay. And what was the tension arose over British control in the region, particularly regarding the discovery of gold in the Boer republics, which attracted many settlers. The Boers resisted British annex their territories and maintained their independence. So the Anglo-Boer War is significant in South African history as it laid the groundwork for later establishment of apartheid, hatred, okay, discrimination about the color, okay, against ongoing racial tension in the Boer here means, okay, remember what I said just now, Anglo-Boer War. So that was little bit his brief information about Anglo-Boer War. But what does Boer means here? Okay, the term Boer is a Dutch word meaning farmer. Boer means what? Farmer. Okay, it especially refers to the descendants of Dutch, German, and French people who settled there in South Africa, who arrived in South Africa, that means during the 17th and 18th century. So I hope a little bit history connecting with this Anglo-Boer War, it is remembered by you. So before whose birth? Nelson Mandela. Okay. So the white-skinned peoples of South Africa patched up their differences. That means apartheid from here only it begins. That they were blacks, they were whites. So whites were the superior and erected a system of racial domination against the dark-skinned peoples of own land. The structure they created formed the basis of one of the harshest, most inhuman societies that world has known. Now, in the last decade of the 20th century and my own eighth decade as a man, that system had been overturned forever and replaced by one that recognized the rights and freedoms of all, regardless of the color of their skin. So here, okay, what just now we have understood, okay, that was the dispute, okay, that black versus white, isn't it? Black versus white. So, in the paragraph that just now we have heard, on his inauguration, Mandela felt the weight of history. That means he was remembering his past history. He recalled that in the 90s, after the Anglo-Boer white South Africans united to a system of racial domination over black people. This system became one of the most brutal in the world. Now, in the 1990s, during Mandela's later years, that system had been abolished and replaced with one that guaranteed equal rights and for everyone, regardless of race. So I hope you have understood. Little bit noise disturbance is there as due to the environment only, but soon it will be solved these problems. Okay. So thank you for paying attention to my sharing views regarding the chapters. Okay. Moving ahead with the passage, that day had come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of people whose suffering and courage can never be counted or repaid. I felt that day as I have on so many days that I was simply the sum of all those African patriots who had gone before me. That long and noble line ended and now began again with me. I was pained that I was not able to thank them and that they were not able to see what their sacrifices had wrought. So, in this passage, okay, already I have explained, okay, that what happened, that he was saddened that he couldn't thank them personally and that they couldn't witness the results of their sacrifices. Okay. So let me recall one more time. On the day of his inauguration, Mandela recognized that it was made possible by the immense sacrifices of countless individuals who had suffered and shown bravery in the fight for freedom. Remember that Anglo-Boer War? Many of their descendants were sacrificed, killed in the battle between, okay, a fight between the Britishers, okay, and blacks. He felt connected to all the African patriots who had come before him, understanding that their struggles led to this moment. That means this final moment from where Nelson Mandela is delivering his speech. That final moment from there, he is remembering the struggles and sacrifices of his descendants. He was saddened that he couldn't thank them personally and that they couldn't witness the results of their sacrifices. How sad, isn't it? Okay, moving ahead. The policy of apartheid, this one, okay, the policy of apartheid created a deep, lasting wound in my country. Whose country? Nelson Mandela country, that is South Africa. And my people, all of us will spend many years, if not generations, recovering from that profound hurt. But the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect, and that was that it produced the Oliver Tambos, the Walter Sisulus, the Chief Lucius, the Joseph Dados, the Bram Fishers, the Robert Subokovs of our time. Men of such extraordinary, these are the men, okay, that just now I have been reading out. And the hint is this, that these are some prominent names in the struggle against apartheid. The extreme hatred against the black color, okay, by the white people. It is mentioned here. Please read. Courage, wisdom, and generosity that their like may never be known again. Perhaps it requires such depths of oppression to create such heights of character. My country is rich in the minerals and gems that lie beneath the soil. But I have always known that its greatest wealth is its people, finer and truer than the purest diamonds. So Mandela reflected on how apartheid caused deep and lasting harm to South African and its people, with recovery taking many years or even generations. However, the oppression also led to the emergence of remarkable leaders like what I have just now read, okay, who showed immense courage and wisdom. He suggested that extreme oppression can bring out extraordinary character in people, while South Africa is rich in natural resources. What was that natural resources? That is gems and minerals, remember. Okay. Mandela believed its greatest treasure is its people, who are more valuable than any precious gems. It is from these comrades in the struggle that I learned the meaning of courage. Time and again, I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea. I have seen men stand up to attacks and torture without breaking, showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. I learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not afraid, but he who conquers that fear. So, in this paragraph, just now, what I have read, Mandela expressed that his fellow freedom fighters taught him what true courage means. He witnessed many people risking their lives for their beliefs and enduring attacks and torture without giving up. This showed him that courage isn't about not feeling fear, rather, it's about overcoming that fear. He believes that a brave person is not someone who never feels afraid, but someone who conquers their fear. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love, for love comes from more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. Even in the grimmest times in prison, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits, I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards, perhaps just for a second, but it was enough to reassure me and keep me going. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished. So Mandela in this passage stating that no one is born with hatred towards others based on race, background, or religion. Hatred is something that people learn. If hatred can be learned, then love can also be taught, as love is a more natural feeling. Even during the darkest moment, even even during the darkest moments in prison, he noticed brief moments of humanity in some guards, which gave him hope and strength to continue. He believed that while a person's goodness might be hidden, it can never be completely extinguished. So, student, I hope you are enjoying my explanation. And one thing I would like to give you advice that this oral comprehension, to check your understanding, you have to go through with these questions, okay, because these questions can reflect during the examination. So don't avoid or ignore these oral comprehension questions. Okay, what I am saying about these type of questions, okay, later on I will discuss, but first of all let me complete the entire chapters of the book. Moving ahead with the explanation, okay, in the life, okay, where's that? Yes, in life every man has twin obligation to his family, to his parents, to his wife and children, and he has an obligation to his people, his community, his country. In a civil and human society, each man is able to fulfill those obligations according to his own inclinations and abilities. But in a country like South Africa, it was almost impossible for a man of my birth and color to fulfill both of those obligations. In South Africa, a man of color was attempted to live as a human being was punished and isolated. In South Africa, a man who tried to fulfill his duty to his people was inevitably ripped from his family and his home and was forced to live a life apart, a twilight existing of secrecy and rebellion. I did not in the beginning choose to place my people above my family, but in attempting to serve my people, I found that I was prevented from fulfilling the obligations as a son, a brother, a father, and a husband. So, in this passage, Mandela explained that every person has two main responsibilities, one towards their family and another towards the community and country. In a fair society, people can balance these obligations based on their personal choices and abilities. However, in apartheid Africa, it was nearly impossible. Those who tried to live freely faced punishment, isolation. If a person wanted to support their community, they often had to leave their family and live in a secrecy and rebellion life. Mandela didn't initially choose to patronize his family, but his efforts to help made it difficult for him to fulfill his roles as an brother, father, and husband. It was not born with a hunger to be free. I born free, free in every way that I could know, free to run near my mother's hut free to swim in the clear stream that ran through my village, free to roast meals under the stars, and ride broad backs of slow moving bulls. As long as I obeyed my father and abided by the customs of my tribe, I was not troubled by the laws of man or God. So here, Mandela stated that he was not born with a desire for freedom because he was already free in many ways. He enjoyed simple pleasures like playing in the field, swimming in the nearby stream, roasting corn under the stars, and riding on the backs of bulls. As long as he respected his father and customs, he did not feel constrained by or divine laws. Okay, so these were the things that he used to face. Okay, and let us try to understand more. It was only when I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion, just a dream, when I discovered as a young man that my freedom had already been taken from, that I began to hunger for it. At first, as a student, I wanted freedom only for myself. The transitory freedoms of being able to stay out at night, read what I pleased, and go where I chose. Later, as a young man in Johannesburg, I yearned for the basic and honorable freedoms of achieving my potential, of uh, earning my keep, of marrying and having a family, the freedom not to be obstructed in a lawful life. So Mandela realized that his childhood freedom was an illusion when he learned as a young man that it had been taken away in the beginning. As a student, he desired freedom for himself, like staying out late, reading whatever he wanted, and going wherever he chose. Later, while living in Johannesburg, his yearning grew to include fundamental freedoms just such as the ability to achieve his potential, earn a living, marry, and raise a family without obstacle in a lawful life. But then I slowly saw that not only was I not feel free. Okay, that means this sentence, let me read one more time. But then I slowly saw that not only was I not free, but my brothers and sisters were not free. I saw that it was not just my freedom that was curtailed, but the freedom of everyone who looked like I did. That is when I joined the African National Congress. In short, ANC, the full name, okay? And that is when the hunger for my own freedom became the greater hunger for the freedom, okay, for the freedom of entire people, for the entire people, of my people. It was this desire for them of my people to live their lives with dignity and self-respect that an animated my life, changed his life, okay, that transformed a frightened young man into a bold one, that drove a law-abiding attorney to become a criminal, that turned a family-loving husband into a man without a home, that forced a life-loving man to a to live, okay, life loving man to live like a monk. I am no more virtuous or self sacrificing than man, but I found that I could not even enjoy poor and limited freedoms I was allowed. I knew my people were not free. Freedom is indivisible. The chains on every one of my people were the chains on all of them. Chains on all of my people were chains on me. So, in this passage, Mandela gradually realized that he was not the only one who was not free. His entire community was oppressed. This understanding made him join the African National Congress Party and shifted his focus from seeking his own freedom to fighting for the freedom of the entire people of his Africa. This desire to help others live with dignity transformed him from a scared young man into a activist. He became a Christ of the law, lost his home and life of sacrifice. Mandela emphasized that he was not inherently more virtuous than others, but he couldn't enjoy his limited freedoms knowing that his people were still suffering. He believed that freedom is interconnected. The oppression of any individual in his community was a reflection of his own chains, and their struggle for freedom was his struggle too. Okay, so how painful life they were living, isn't it? I knew I knew that the oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. A man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. He is locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow mindedness. I am not truly free if I am taking away someone else's freedom, just as surely as I am not free when my freedom is taken from me. Oppressed and the oppressor alike are robbed of their humanity. So here Mandela recognized that both the oppressor and the oppressed need liberation. He believed that a person who denies another's freedom is trapped by hatred and prejudice. He emphasized that true freedom cannot exist if it comes at the expense of someone else's freedom. Just as he feels unfree when his rights are taken away, the oppressor also loses their humanity by oppressing others. In this essence, both groups suffer from the lack of true freedom. So, this is all about Nelson Mandela, A Long Walk to Freedom. Okay, and oral comprehension, my students, please go through it and respond according to your understanding and solve the entire textual questions, which are very important for your evaluation of the chapter. Okay, and finally I will say that the model that we learned in this uh, speech of Nelson Mandela is that true freedom exists only when everyone is free. Oppressing others strips away humanity from both the oppressor and the oppressed. So finally, to conclude, I will sum up with this short, in brief, the uh, uh, entire story that is connected to Nelson Mandela's speech. Okay, so Mandela realized that his childhood freedom was an illusion when when he discovered the oppression of his people. Initially seeking personal freedoms, he later joined the African National Congress, driven by a desire for collective freedom and dignity for all. He understood that both the oppressor and the oppressed must be liberated, as true freedom cannot exist when others are subjugated. Mandela emphasized that denying someone else's freedom robs both parties of their humanity, highlighting the interconnections of their struggles. And apartheid should be not followed anywhere in this world. So, this is all. Thank you for paying attention and please put your effort in study too. Thank you.